Imagine caring for a patient whose breathing suddenly stops, or someone who's lost the ability to speak after a stroke. What part of the brain is responsible, and what went wrong? Understanding the anatomy of the brain isn't just about memorizing parts. It's about knowing how structure connects to function and how that knowledge can literally save a life. Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Learning Biology with Dr. Vanessa, where I take difficult biological concepts and make them easy to understand. In this video, we'll walk through the major regions of the brain, how they're protected and nourished, and how they connect to the spinal cord and cranial nerves to form the body's ultimate control system. The tissue of the brain is delicate, so it's protected by multiple layers. We covered these layers in a previous video, but let's quickly review them. The brain itself is encased within the cranium, or the skull, and it is surrounded by three protective connective tissue layers called the meninges. The meninges consists of the dura mater, which is a tough outer covering, the arachnoid mater, which is a web-like middle layer, and the pia mater, which is a thin inner layer that closely follows the brain's contours. Between the arachnoid and pia mater is the subarachnoid space, which contains cerebrospinal fluid. This is a clear fluid that cushions the brain, protects it from injury, and circulates nutrients and waste. Cerebrospinal fluid is produced by the choroid plexuses within the brain's ventricles, and it circulates through the ventricles and around the brain and spinal cord before being reabsorbed into the bloodstream. The brain also requires a constant blood supply. The internal carotid and vertebral arteries deliver oxygen and glucose-rich blood, while the blood-brain barrier helps maintain a stable environment by limiting passage of harmful substances. Together, all of these things protect the brain. The adult brain consists of four major parts: the brainstem, the cerebellum, the diencephalon, and the cerebrum. The brainstem connects the spinal cord to the higher brain regions and acts as a relay station and control center. It includes the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. The midbrain contains reflex centers for visual and auditory responses, such as tracking moving objects or reacting to a loud noise. It also contains nuclei that release dopamine, which help regulate subconscious movements. The loss of these neurons is associated with Parkinson's disease. The pons contains both sensory and motor tracts and relays signals for voluntary movement between the cerebrum and the cerebellum. Here we find the pneumotaxic and apnoistic centers, which work with the medulla oblongata to help control breathing rhythm. The medulla oblongata contains vital centers for cardiovascular and respiratory control. The cardiovascular center regulates the heart rate, the force of contraction, and blood vessel diameter. The medullary rhythmicity center adjusts the basic rhythm of breathing. The medulla oblongata also coordinates reflexes like vomiting, coughing, sneezing, and hiccuping. The cerebellum is referred to as the little brain. Although it makes up about 1/10 of the brain's mass, it contains nearly half of all brain neurons. The primary function of the cerebellum is to evaluate how well movements initiated by motor areas in the cerebrum are actually being carried out. Basically, it fine-tunes movement by comparing what your body intends to do with what it is actually doing. When movements aren't being carried out correctly, the cerebellum detects discrepancies. If there's a mismatch, say you reach for a cup and miss slightly, the cerebellum detects the error and sends corrective signals to the motor areas of the cerebrum via the thalamus. This ensures smooth, coordinated movement, proper muscle tone, and balance. The diencephalon sits between the brainstem and the cerebrum and includes the thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. The thalamus makes up about 80% of the diencephalon and acts as the brain's main relay station for sensory input traveling to the cerebral cortex. The thalamus also works with other parts of the brain in movement control, emotions, maintenance of consciousness, pain perception, learning, memory, and cognition. The hypothalamus is the master regulator of homeostasis. It monitors the body's internal environment, including osmotic pressure, blood glucose level, certain hormone concentrations, and the temperature of blood, and it responds to maintain this balance. There are important functions of the hypothalamus, which include control of the autonomic nervous system. Here, the hypothalamus controls and integrates activities of the autonomic nervous system. It regulates heart rate, movement of food through the gastrointestinal tract, and contraction of the urinary bladder. The hypothalamus also produces stimulating or inhibiting hormones that act on the secretion of anterior pituitary hormones. The hypothalamus also produces hormones like oxytocin or antidiuretic hormone that travel to the posterior pituitary where they are released. The hypothalamus is also involved in the regulation of emotional and behavioral patterns. Together with the limbic system, the hypothalamus is involved in the expression of rage, aggression, pain, and pleasure. The hypothalamus works to regulate food intake. It contains a feeding center, which promotes eating, and a satiety center, which causes sensations of fullness and the cessation of eating. The hypothalamus also contains a thirst center. This center promotes the intake of water when it senses that osmotic pressure has increased within the body. The hypothalamus also functions as the body's thermostat. If the temperature is above normal, the hypothalamus will direct the autonomic nervous system to stimulate activities that promote heat loss. If the blood temperature is below normal, the hypothalamus generates impulses that promote heat production and retention. And finally, the hypothalamus also works with the pineal gland to establish circadian rhythms and controlling sleep-wake cycles. The epithalamus is a small region that is located superior and posterior to the thalamus. It contains the pineal gland and habenular nuclei. The pineal gland is about the size of a small pea and secretes melatonin, which helps regulate the circadian rhythm by promoting sleepiness. The habenular nuclei are involved in emotional responses to odors, such as the comforting smell of a loved one's perfume or the smell of grandma's apple pie. The cerebrum is the seat of intelligence and the largest part of the brain. It is responsible for conscious thought, memory, learning, and personality. It consists of the cerebral cortex, which is gray matter, an inner region of cerebral white matter, and deep gray matter nuclei. The cerebral cortex is the outer gray matter that forms the brain's folded surface. The cerebral cortex neurons form synapses with one another and receive and integrate incoming and outgoing information. During development, the gray matter enlarges much faster than the deeper white matter, and because of this, the area folds on itself and creates elevated ridges and depressions called grooves. The ridges are referred to as gyri, and the grooves between them are referred to as either sulci, which are shallow, or fissures, which are deep. The most prominent fissure is the longitudinal fissure, which divides the cerebrum into right and left hemispheres. The hemispheres are connected internally by the corpus callosum, a massive band of white matter that allows communication between the two hemispheres of the brain. Cerebral white matter is made of myelinated axons that form tracts that propagate impulses throughout the central nervous system to allow communication between the regions. Association tracts connect areas within a hemisphere, commissural tracts connect the two hemispheres, and projection tracts connect the cerebrum to lower brain regions. Each hemisphere is divided into lobes named after the cranial bones that cover them. The lobes of the cerebrum include the frontal lobe, which is responsible for motor control, reasoning, and speech, the parietal lobe, which is sensory processing and spatial awareness, the temporal lobe, which is where we have hearing and memory, the occipital lobe, where vision is located, And the insula, which we cannot see on the outside, it is deep within the lateral sulcus and is involved in taste, visceral sensation, and emotional awareness. The limbic system, sometimes called the emotional brain, includes parts of the cerebrum and diencephalon, such as the hippocampus, amygdala, and cingulate gyrus. It's responsible for emotional responses, motivation, and memory formation. For example, the amygdala helps you recognize fear or anger, while the hippocampus converts short-term memories into long-term ones. Now let's talk about the functional organization of the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex can be divided into sensory areas, motor areas, and association areas. The sensory areas receive sensory information and are involved in perception, the conscious awareness of a sensation. The motor areas initiate voluntary movements, and the association areas deal with more complex integrative functions such as memory, emotions, reasoning, will, judgment, personality traits, and intelligence. So we're going to go through each one of these areas, starting with the different sensory areas. In sensory areas, we have the primary somatosensory cortex. This is located in each parietal lobe, and it receives impulses for touch, pressure, vibration, itch, tickle, and temperature, pain, and proprioception, which is joint and muscle position. The primary visual cortex is located at the posterior tip of the occipital lobe, and this area receives visual information and is involved in visual perception. The primary auditory cortex is located in the superior part of the temporal lobe. This area receives information for sound and is involved in auditory perception. The gustatory cortex, this is located in the insula. This area receives impulses for taste and is involved in taste perception and discrimination. And the last sensory area is the olfactory cortex, located in the temporal lobe. This area receives impulses for smell and is involved in the perception and discrimination of various odors. Now let's move into the motor areas. The primary motor cortex is located in the frontal lobe. This area controls voluntary contractions of specific muscles or groups of muscles. The premotor cortex is located anterior to the primary motor cortex, and this area sends impulses to the primary motor cortex that plans movements that cause specific groups of muscles to contract simultaneously or sequentially, like typing, writing your name, or even playing a musical instrument. Broca's area is located in the frontal lobe. This area is involved in the planning and production of speech. It controls the muscles that move so that you can speak, and it also controls the breathing muscles to regulate the airflow through the vocal cords. The frontal eye field is located partially in and anterior to the premotor cortex and superior to Broca's area. This area controls voluntary scanning movements of the eyes. And then we'll take a look at the different association areas. The somatosensory association area is posterior to and receives input from the primary somatosensory cortex and other parts of the brain. This area integrates and interprets sensations. The visual association area is located in the occipital lobe. This area receives sensory impulses from the primary visual area and the thalamus. It relates present and past visual experiences and is essential for recognizing and evaluating what is seen. The facial recognition area is located in the inferior temporal lobe. It stores information about faces and allows you to recognize individuals by their face. Auditory association area is located inferior and posterior to the primary auditory cortex in the temporal lobe. It allows you to recognize a particular sound as speech, music, or noise. The orbital frontal cortex is located along the lateral part of the frontal lobe. It receives sensory information from the olfactory cortex. This area allows you to identify and discriminate among different odors. Wernicke's area is located in a broad region in the left temporal and parietal lobes. This area interprets the meaning of speech, by recognizing spoken words. It also lets you translate words into thoughts and contribute to verbal communication by adding emotional content. Unlike individuals who have cerebrovascular accidents in Broca's area, those who suffer cerebrovascular accidents in Wernicke's area can still speak, but cannot arrange words in a coherent fashion, so it becomes this word salad. The common integrative area is bordered by the somatosensory, visual, and auditory association areas. It integrates sensory interpretations from all sensory association areas, allowing the formation of thoughts based on a variety of sensory inputs. It then sends those signals to other parts of the brain for the appropriate response to the sensory signals it has interpreted. And the last association area is the prefrontal cortex. It is located in the anterior portion of the frontal lobe. This area is concerned with the makeup of a person's personality, intellect, complex learning abilities, recall of information, initiative, judgment, foresight, reasoning, conscience, intuition, mood, planning for the future, and development of abstract ideas. Now let's talk a little bit about hemispheric lateralization. Although the two cerebral hemispheres are structurally similar, functionally they are subtly different. This difference between the hemispheres is termed hemispheric lateralization. The left hemisphere receives somatic sensory signals from and controls the muscles on the right side of the body, and the right hemisphere receives somatic sensory signals from and controls the muscles on the left side of the body. This is referred to as contralateral control. The left hemisphere includes reasoning, numerical, and scientific skills, spoken, written language, and the ability to use and understand sign language, while the right hemisphere is more specialized for music and artistic awareness, spatial pattern and perception, recognition of faces and emotional content of language, discrimination of different smells, and generating mental images of sounds, sight, touch, taste, and smell to compare relationships among them. Think about everything your brain just did during this video. It listened, processed, made connections, stored new information, and maybe even sparked a little curiosity. You learned how the brain protects itself, how its regions communicate, and how all of it keeps you alive and aware. Here's something amazing. Your brain contains about 86 billion neurons, each making thousands of connections, and those connections are constantly changing as you learn. So right now, just by watching this video, your brain literally rewired itself to understand anatomy a little better than it did about 15 minutes ago. Every new connection you make, every concept that clicks, actually reshapes your brain a little, and that's happening right now. So if you're feeling amazed, you should be. You just use your brain to understand your brain. If you enjoyed the content of this video and want to keep learning about how your body works, please make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and turn on notifications so that you never miss out on new content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.